You all ready?
Mhm.
I am the very model of a major model general.
Well, as we get talking about musicals, Hugo, I can do the whole and some of the power platform.
The hills are alive.
I think I gotta go. It's too much.
Welcome to Power Platform Connections. In this episode, we're going to be talking with Avanade MVP Heidi Jordan, and then we're going to review all the amazing blogs from the community. My name is David Warner. I'm a community program manager from Microsoft, and with me today is
Hugo Bernier. I'm right over here, David.
You are.
And David took all my updates, so I don't get to talk about anything. But but I have the honor to introduce our guest. She's going to be a speaker at the Power Platform Conference, so I'm looking forward to talk to her about her sessions. And Heidi Jordan, are you in the room? There you are.
Hello.
Hello.
So happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming. So why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself to all of our watchers.
Sure. Well, my name is Heidi Jordan. I hail from the great state of South Dakota. So there's not many of us up here. So I like to represent the Microsoft community in South Dakota. So yeah, I tell everyone that I'm a SharePoint girl living in a Power Platform world. SharePoint is my first love and always will be. But I've really, kind of migrated into the Power Platform world as that kind of came to be. So I am a senior modern workplace consultant with Avanade. So I get to do all things SharePoint and Power Platform related every day, which is why I love my job. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, and you're in good company because Hugo and I are both SharePoint X MVPs. So that was our first love as well. But as we know, I say this a lot, so many overlapping circles, and the technology is best when used together, right? I think I've heard better together. Oh my goodness, I think we just made that up, right? No one's ever heard
You're
that
onto
before,
something.
So. One of the things that we do on the episodes is we always kind of start with a little bit of a personal touch to who you are and things you like. We had you fill out a form. It's great because as we get back together in person again, it gives conversation starters to everyone in the community. So we kind of put together some lists of things that we found fascinating that you had filled out. It's simple things like favorite drinks and food and stuff. Now, there was one that stood out from the rest, and that was your favorite drink. And it wasn't just like Coke, but it was fountain Diet Coke. Now, this is fascinating to me, at least. I'm sure Hugo's got an opinion on it, being a former chef. But what makes the difference between like fountain Diet Coke and bottle or can Diet Coke?
You have to just experience it to know, there's difference. It's pop. As where I come from, it's pop. It's not soda, first of all. Yes, and then there's always when you go to the restaurant and they say, "Oh, is Diet Pepsi okay?" No, it's not. and yes, there's something in that McDonald's fountain Diet Coke that they just do so much better than the others. I think I've seen articles about it that they use like a bigger straw or something, and it must be the level of carbonation.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there's something about it that's just therapeutic. So that is
I
my
think
favorite
they're the
thing.
only ones that can mix their own syrup too, by the way, compared to everybody else. I was just talking to someone from Holland over the weekend, and we were talking about that exact topic. Fountain pop versus can pop, and we started talking about how the Coca-Cola in Amsterdam or in Holland in general. I don't want anybody to make the wrong assumptions here, but Coca-Cola in Holland in general tastes so much better than regular Coca-Cola everywhere else. And turns out they're using real cane sugar there, like in Mexico.
I'm gonna have to travel the world, try it out.
That's right. That's right.
There is actually out in Orlando when we were there for the last Power Platform conference, they have this sodas of the world. It was like 22 different sodas that you could try from all over the world, which was kind of cool to try the different ones and stuff like that. Huh. So that was unique. Yeah. Now, you also said in line, again, we got a nice theme going on here. The best way to start your day is caffeine. Now, of course, I know Hugo's going to have something to add here, but explain that a little bit. Is it like, are you sluggish until you get that whole first drip down?
Oh yeah,
the gullet?
It's like the times of the day. The 8 to noon is the coffee hours, and then we go through the day, cook, and then who knows from then. But yes, that's kind of how I structure my day is around my drinks.
Are you in the same boat as Hugo? Like if we see you looking like you're kind of walking zombie-like, then we know to
I do. I have a sign. It's up there. That's the no coffee, no worky. That is my the words I live by. So it's up there. So yep.
Ooh, I need that.
I was gonna say, I think Hugo's gonna start putting that on his background here soon and make that a requirement for
Better
work.
together, right, Hugo?
That's right. So now, I don't know about you, but I use my caffeine when I'm preparing for my conference talks because, of course, I'll wait until the very last moment to put together my presentation. You're not like that. Good.
No.
So, because you've got a couple talks that you need to do in October at the Power Platform Conference.
That's
What are
right.
those talks about?
Yep. I'll be at the Power Platform Conference again. I'm so excited. So I'm doing one session on so it's funny. I've done this session for many years. It's the Power Apps tips from a first-time user. So I actually tell my story about how I got started with Power Apps from the perspective of like I had zero knowledge of this going into it. So I love to just take it back and tell about like my personal pros and cons and how to get things you're going to run into, and here's how you fix it. Things that I spent way too much time researching and trying to figure out. So that is one of the sessions I'll be doing. And then I am going to debut a brand new one about Power Automate and 6 tips to keep your business flowing. So some of those more common things that, again, I think should be easy, but haven't been. So that's kind of what I love to do, is to help users through that. There's just a ton of resources out there to do that. So I kind of bring it all into my head and then put my spin on it and share that with the users. So that's another one that I'll be doing at the Power Platform Conference.
I love these types of sessions where it's like 10 things that you can do, or 6 things that you can do, because people can take how much or how little they want from those sessions, right? They don't have to necessarily pay attention the whole time. They can just focus on the things that are important to them. Hopefully they'll pay attention the whole time, but really, like, there's a little bit of everything for everyone. I think this is something that David, you do a lot of top X things.
Yeah. I mean, I like how it's 6 Power Automate essentials. So you can have any that you want as long as it's less than 6, right? So that's the take away anything you want, 6 or less. I really like those. They're things that are fun for people because they move rapidly. So in this case, you're probably going to spend about 10-ish minutes, right, per tip, which is great because it gives you an opportunity to do demos and stuff like that. So yeah, that's exciting. And of course, the Power Platform Conference is in October in Vegas. And so that's got a little special place in your heart, I believe, right?
It does. That might be one of my favorite places to visit ever. So just ask all the other speakers who make fun of me every time there's a conference there. Like, oh, Heidi's going to be happy.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool. And of course, you're also a big fan of musicals, we found out. So what we didn't tell you is that your sessions will have to be done in the form of a musical. So I hope that's totally okay.
Well,
kidding, of
I've
course.
got time to prepare.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we'll jump in. Like I don't mind doing like the Phantom of the Power Platform here. We could, do some sort of something.
I'm sure we
special
could throw something together. Yep.
Yeah, we could figure it out.
No
right?
doubt.
Yeah, we have plenty of time for sure. Now, you spoke at the conference in Orlando last late September, and one of the things that we know about the Microsoft entire ecosystem is how strong the community is. And of course, in the Power Platform, there's so many new ones that are coming into the Power Platform and finding really a family-like experience within the community. Talk about how that's worked for you and kind of your bond to that as well.
Yeah, the community is, it's amazing. Like, I have friends that are in Europe, that I've never met, but we talk on Twitter all the time now. It's just something that it brings you together and they help you. It's not just about the technology too. It's about like, I'm struggling with this, and then someone else can empathize, so you really feel like you're not alone in your career and your tech journey, but it's also a place that you can celebrate, and the things that you are passionate about, the things that I love to talk about, so do they. So I love that binds us together, and it's just a group of people that I would never know otherwise. Never would have spoken to them before in a room of random people, but that's kind of the power of the community.
You'll have people who are competitors in real life. They work for competing companies, but you just get together and you work together like there's no competition, and it's just awesome to see that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. There's no other product or like it that people surround themselves like this around, and there's events and, people don't understand like the time and commitments that people put into the community and the webinars and even the community calls. It's just, there's so many resources, and it just is a very the tech world can be lonely. It can be like once you can get stuck and you can, maybe you're working in a company and you've kind of reached the top of and there's no one else to go above you to talk to or even around you, so it's really cool to be able to fall back on the community.
Yeah, that's where I think doing more with less really not only applies to the technology, but applies in the community, right? Because we've said it before, you could be on a team of one in an organization. Of course, due to the economy, you could have been reduced to a team of one. And now you feel like, well, how am I going to learn? Where am I going to figure some of this stuff out? How am I going to see how others are using the technology? And you mentioned the community calls. Those are such a great way. And I always kind of say the community calls are such worth the investment of 2 to 3 hours a week, because it gives you the what's now, what's new, what's next, right? So you're kind of seeing what everybody is doing with the technology, and that's worth its weight in gold alone, because oftentimes you can kind of get stuck in a rut or maybe get tunnel vision to how your clients or your job is using the technology, and it may be hard to see the full scope and breadth or depth of how it could be used. And you see someone else using it, and then that sparks a passion. Has that happened for you before, where you saw that on a call and then maybe you reached out to someone, or vice versa?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't know what you don't know during this, and even when you're working on things like I was working on a COE project, and I'm just like, again, I don't know what I don't know, but I know that all these community pillars and people I follow on Twitter have been tweeting about it. So then I remember things like, oh, I remember someone posted an article. I should go check that out, and I can just get in touch with those resources, and it really just builds your knowledge without you knowing about it. And I tell businesses too that they do all this Power Platform training and internally, but there's a whole wealth of free resources out there from the people that are doing this in other industries. It's industry knowledge and it's free, and they love to talk about it. So it's really important to get your employees access to those community resources as well.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what the COE is, do you mind talking a little bit about what that acronym means?
Yes, it's been my new baby. We've been working the Center of Excellence. It's a basically a starter kit that when you are implementing the Power Platform into your organization, there's going to be a lot of questions of like, so we're going to put these apps and flows out there. Who's using them? How many do we have? Like, what are some of the guardrails we need to make sure that they don't expose our data to everyone by accident? Like, what are those security things that we can implement? And then how do we, continue to grow this safely and effectively? So it kind of combines all those questions, and they pulled this feedback from all these different organizations and really bundled it into this one thing called the COE toolkit. So it's something that you can go out to GitHub and install on your in your environment and just get started with it. This nice little package. And then there's just a wealth of resources out there about how you can actually take it to the next level in your organization.
And I think one of the cool things about the Center of Excellence Toolkit or Starter Kit is that it is itself all built using the Power Platform. So it's very meta.
Yep.
and
that's very meta of you to say that, Hugo.
That's right.
Are we allowed to say
that? So this is the part where we're all censored right now. Yeah, exactly. Just the bar over.
Gotcha.
No, governance is such an important topic, because if you think about the Power Platform, right, we're saying, hey, we're going to empower people to build their own applications to solve problems with processes and websites and apps and things like that. And typically the IT departments are like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want people to go crazy and expose my data to the outside world, like you said. And the answer to this is, well, how do you get that balance between empowering people to do what they need to do and still controlling your infrastructure? You don't want to create a shadow IT. Governance is the first step, and the starter kit is a great way to get started with that.
Absolutely. And I'm, again, things I'm running into with, people are afraid to actually empower their users because they don't have the support to support them. They're like, oh no, someone's going to learn Power Apps and now they're going to have to support their solution too. So it really, by having those rules down, I keep telling people that you got to get it out of your head. You got to get it somewhere in writing, so you can tell these people as they build their solutions, like, here's the guard, here's the governance, like, here's where this should live, here's who should have access, get some standard things down, because as this platform takes off, they're going to adopt it. People are going to adopt it. You're going to have more and more makers, and you're not going to be able to support them. You won't be able to. That's okay. It's a good problem to have, but you really definitely need to prepare for it.
That's one of the things we heard at last year's conference, Power Platform Conference. We had so many people that came to us and said, I don't know what this Power Platform thing is. I've just been told that I am now in charge of the Power Platform, or I've been told that I'm supposed to fix this problem, and I don't know where to start. And the fact that people can rely on the community, right? Other people who are passionate about the products to talk about how to use the products. And then after the conference, to be able to go to the power users at Microsoft.com to be able to ask questions in the community. David and I like to say, your team is bigger than you think, because it's not just those individuals that are within your organization. There's so many other people in the world that are going through the same things you're doing. Maybe they've gone through it before you did, but they have the opportunity to actually, share their expertise or learn from you, and that's just amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Hugo, when it comes to like governance and everything, I mean, coding is not much different. Governance is not much different in this light. Heidi, when you were saying like most people want to just say, how do I prevent them from building something that we need to support? I think that thinking back to when I was, I come from a pro dev background, young coder. I worked with a guy who everybody got nicknames. His name was Bob, so of course he was Cyber Bob. And I was coding something, and he said, "Well, why did you decide to create an error here, an error alert, or a pop up?" And I said, "Well, I was letting him know they made a mistake." And he said, "Don't warn them when they've made a mistake, prevent them from making the mistake." And it's kind of the same thing with governance, right? It's you put in a good governance plan and implement it and share it with your organization. Now you're preventing them from doing something that's going to be costly, instead of then reprimanding them or warning them once they have, then they got to go back and change everything. And so it's the same concept.
And I think that the power of internal user groups is huge. I always try and tell every organization I've worked at, I've started it, and just had this internal champions network or this user group internally that you can do some show and tell and have talk about those soft topics, because sometimes people will listen to each other more than they'll listen to IT. If this person tells me this is important, then I'm going to listen to them, but not so much IT laying down the law. So
yeah,
good way
absolutely.
to get that out.
Just wanted to you had some great advice. You've been speaking a lot. You spoke at the last Power Platform conference. You're speaking at the next. There's a lot that are inspired by all this empowerment and want to do more of speaking of their own. What is some of the advice that you could share with others that are looking to kind of take that next step, or the initial step even?
Sure, I do. I have lots of thoughts on this, but I think I mentioned in how I got started speaking was because my mentor said, you should start speaking. Okay, what should I talk about?
Just like
And she
that, right?
said, Power Platform. And I said, I know nothing about that. And now here I am delivering sessions at the Power Platform conference. So, I think just pick. Like, you don't have to be the expert on stuff to talk about it. Like, you don't have to know the 400 level of it. Like, you just have to have a story. You just have to tell people, like, think about like things you're struggling with, or things things that you overcame that you were struggling with. Tell your success story. Tell some things that are unique about your business. Or I spent a ton of time researching this, and I think other people would benefit because of X. That's kind of how I structure my sessions. And I've went to conferences for how many years, and I just kept picking out nuggets of all these sessions. And so that's why, nuggets that I could go back and implement as soon as I got back to my job. Things that your manager was like, what did you learn? Like, so I tried to put things in my sessions that you can take back and implement immediately. So I think that's one thing that is a really, again, it's not 400 level stuff, but it's something that really well and you struggled through. So you'll be able to share your story in a compelling way during your session.
Yeah, we always talk about never underestimate the value of that level 100, even level 0, because there are so many, as Hugo mentioned, people just inheriting the technology that know nothing. And so we could try to come up with that level 400 that shows how to, make a flux capacitor and Great Scott, and this is what makes time travel possible. But you're going to help like just a handful of people. So don't underestimate and think. Oftentimes it'll happen. People will think, well, this is so basic, the basic information. Who doesn't know it? Lots of people don't know it. And it's great to share it, because even if someone has already shared it, they may hear it differently in the way you share it or the story that you tell. And that may be the difference between them learning and understanding and having not been able to understand. So
Exactly. Do not assume that they know. Like I've learned that the hard way. Do not blaze through your demos. Do not make sure to define everything. Some people, you think that they know all about SharePoint, but there are a lot of people that are coming so I worked at a place where we were only on-prem for SharePoint for a long time. So I would go to these conferences and everything was SharePoint Online and stuff. And so I never really resonated with what I was coming home with from the conferences. But then once I got into SharePoint Online, 8 years later, I was ready for that content. I didn't want people to blaze over that. I needed that beginner content at that point in time. So I always try and remember that too when I'm submitting for conferences, that there are some people who are still adopting this. So don't be afraid to define those basic requirements too, those basic things.
Yeah, and even more so with Power Platform, right? Because SharePoint was kind of one product, and now you've got a suite of products. So it's even harder to kind of see where those dots connect and those lines intersect and all that. So very good. Well, Heidi, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Congratulations on MPPC. Congratulations on the MVP. We are looking forward to seeing you in Vegas in October, and appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. Good to see you both.
All right, everybody, let's take a few minutes now and review some of the amazing blogs and events and current news that you all shared with us by using the hashtag PowerPlatformConnects. Hugo, what do we got? I think we got some stuff from Dennis and Lindsay and Pranav.
We got lots of stuff. And again, thank you everyone for submitting your posts. So the first thing that we have is a blog post by Dennis Godejbur. Hopefully I'm saying this right, Dennis. Feel free to message me if I butchered your name. So it's about filtering your queries with a specific version number. So when you're using the SharePoint Get Items action with Power Automate, one of the options that you have is that you can use the filter query field. And in the article, he shows an example of looking for files where the version number is greater than 5, for example. And so one of the great things about the article is that Dennis documents his whole journey to solve the challenge. It's not just like, here's the answer, but here's what I went through. Here's, the challenges that I faced, which is a great way, again, to learn problem solving techniques, especially when you're trying to diagnose more obscure things like filters. So it's a great article. The next article is how to manage your connections in Power Automate and how to take control of them by Lindsay Shelton. And, if you have ever used Power Automate flows that are running and they're maybe, for example, sending emails, and the emails say they're coming from you, but then someone comes in and helps you and they update the flow, and all of a sudden the email starts coming from that person who helped you edit the document, or you're updating SharePoint documents and the documents all show as edited by that person. So in this post, Lindsay explains kind of what is the culprit of these issues, and that's connections, and how you can change them.
And I like how she provides some of the best practices in going up and cleaning up those connections with step-by-step best practices, because I mean, in all honesty, otherwise you're going to end up with like 12 million connections, right? And trust me, it's a bear to count all of those, and if you lose track, it's even worse. So no good on the 12 million connections. And hey, by the way, we're going to talk to future David and Hugo for a moment here, right, Hugo? Lindsay, congratulations on being selected as a speaker for MPPC. You're not going to see this until Thursday, and we're recording on Monday, but that's what we get to do with the power of time travel. Yay!
Woohoo!
Congratulations!
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, it's like we're time travelers. That's amazing.
All right. The next one is Environment Variable Values in Dataverse for Teams by Michael Miguel. And last time I said his name, I butchered his name. So hopefully this time I got it right. In this post, Michael actually answers the question, well, how do I change my environment variable values in Dataverse for Teams? Because as you can imagine, with Dataverse for Teams, things are a little different when you're trying to change environment variables. And he does say in his blog post that his solution is a little unusual. And to his credit, he says that the Microsoft documentation clearly says that the approach that he's documenting is not supported. So I would encourage you to use at your own risk here.
think about this, like it doesn't mean that it's gonna break or anything like that. It just means it's not supported. A lot of times that gets nervous when you think about like something that's undocumented, but sometimes you have to utilize these and understand the risk, right? The risk, the reward. If you're comfortable going in with the risk and understanding it, then it's not like when you hear folks or Microsoft say it's not documented or it's not supported, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work. It just means that there's an inherent, risk that you assume in using it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to break tomorrow kind of thing. So good information to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And one thing that Michael says in his article is he never says this is the ultimate way or this is the only way. In fact, what he says is really it's not a perfect solution. It works for me, right? And sometimes I think it's important to talk about spicy topics that because maybe the product group doesn't see that gap or doesn't see how it's been used, or maybe it's not even prioritized. And sometimes bringing up things like this where you're struggling is a good way to help people at Microsoft go, oh, we never thought about that. We never thought that people would need to do that. Or maybe they've thought about it because trust me, they do think a long way ahead in terms of what features to put in the product. And they just never thought it was a higher priority for people. So don't hesitate to kind of talk about these spicy topics. Again, the solution that Michael recommends is clearly listed as not supported. You choose your own adventure. All right. Another topic is the OpenAI Independent Publisher version 1.1, which adds new completion and edit actions by Troy Taylor. Now, Troy Taylor is a great contributor in the community. One of the areas where he contributes extensively is with the Power Platform independent connectors. And the way this works, right, the Power Platform uses connectors to integrate with third-party and Microsoft first-party. And there's certified connectors. They're the ones that are created by the organizations that own the APIs that you're connecting to. But people in the community can also create connectors to third-party APIs and then submit them for certification. And you do this through a pull request with GitHub. And these types of connectors that are created by the community are called independent publisher connectors. And they show up right along with the other connectors in Power Platform when you use the add a connector dialog. Troy has updated the OpenAI independent publisher connector to update things like the completion point because the old completion endpoint was deprecated. He's also added a whole bunch of new things. In fact, I looked at Troy's contributions in the Power Platform connector repositories, and I just searched for how many times he was listed as an author of a connector, and his name came up 121 times. That means that he's personally created all these connectors.
And,
yes,
and
David?
I'll just want to say 121, 1.21 gigawatts. I don't know that there's a connection, but
That's
wow.
great.
Right?
Great
It's
Scott.
pretty creepy. Yeah, this is amazing.
Pranav Khurana he says he's the world's longest Microsoft Power Platform Azure AI and app maker who's certified. And there's no link for this article. It's just he was actually speaking. He's 9 years old, and he was speaking at the Global Power Platform Bootcamp 2023. And his session was called "What a 9-Year-Old Kid Can Teach You About Power Apps." And I think it was just awesome to see people as young as 9 years old to get involved. And he's been doing this for a couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, in fact, I was talking to him or chatting with him on Teams over the weekend to let him know he did a great job. He earned some badges last year because he had demoed on the Power Platform. What at that time was the Power Apps community call, and so we've been talking about actually getting him scheduled again for the community call as well as being a guest on the show. So keep an eye out, Pranav. Congratulations on those badges. Keep it up, buddy. We are very proud of you and excited to talk to you on the show here soon.
It would be exciting to have him on the show. Now, however, you know he's going to be like the most mature of all three of us, right?
Well, I mean, when you're building Power Apps at 9 years old, you and I are both rethinking our decisions of what we were thinking about doing at 9 years old. Going, oh, okay.
At 9 years old, I was destroying more things than I was building.
That's true. Yeah.
All right. Victor Dantas he's been great at tagging articles and posts and things like that, and he just was at a session by Dinakaran Gajavarathan, where he was talking about using Power Virtual Agent and OpenAI to create fallback answers. I haven't seen a blog post from Dina. I would love to see a blog post or a demo of this, and of course, we'll be happy to feature it in an upcoming episode. But kudos for doing that. We also have Nati Turtledove, who's created a QA solution that really fully integrates with the Power Platform pipelines to make a QA process so much simpler. Now, this is something that is inspired by the ALM accelerator that was built by the PowerCap team. But this solution is built alongside with Power Platform pipelines, tried to say that 3 times fast, and it accesses all the deployed solutions within your designated QA environment. And then when the solution is in QA, your users can actually create a QA assessment for the project. You can assign it to other users, and you can manage a checklist of items, and then submit that to a final QA grade for the solution.
Yeah, Power Platform pipelines, Power Platform pipelines, Power Platform pipelines. I just had to try. So
show off.
Yeah, woo! Yeah. Well, and what's exciting about this is that what we're looking at here is adoption.microsoft.com. And so in that screenshot, we're seeing that sample driven and bubbled up to the global sample gallery. And what's cool is this is a central place to see all kinds of samples, not just Power Platform, but Microsoft 365, as well as Power Platform, as well as Graph, as well as Teams, as well as all the good stuff that we work with every single day. And what's cool is that each individual contributor gets their own little profile page too. So if you ever wanted to kind of say holistically share all that you've been doing within the community, that's a great way to do that if you're a big sample contributor, as well as, of course, the badges that we do. We're excited about that. But this is a really, really cool opportunity to be able to show the formal and official work that you're doing.
And these samples, by the way, are provided to you through aka.ms/Power Platform-samples. And so there's actually repositories with things like Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Effects, Power Virtual Agent samples. And so here we have an example of me searching for April and some of the samples that she's created. All these samples then also get rolled up all the way to adoption.microsoft.com. So if you have some cool samples that you want to share with us, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And then, David, you and I have a Sharing is Caring session with April where we talk about how to contribute. So we'll have to post a link somewhere.
Yes, we do. We have that coming up here in March, which is just around the corner, just around the river bend. We are going to be doing another Power Platform samples contributor. And so what is that? If you're watching and you don't know, Sharing is Caring is sessions that are live in Teams calls where we join together. We don't record them. They're safe space. And they're an opportunity for you to learn alongside other like-minded, passionate individuals in the community. We'll walk you through how to do an actual pull request. So if you're not really familiar or a little uncomfortable with GitHub, which everybody is because it's moving all the time, changing, and uses some weird terms like clone and fork and pull request, right? So we walk you through that, and you leave there having earned a badge and knowing how to do it, and then we'll work with you on getting those samples. And so it's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful way for you to be able to learn some of those things, ask questions in that safe space environment as well. All right, that's it, everybody. Well, thank you for sharing your blogs and information with us this week. And if you'd like us to cover your blogs and news, make sure you use that hashtag Power Platform Connects. Now, Hugo, there's another thing that they could do to get involved. What is that?
Well, you can actually join our community and be part of all these awesome conversations that we talked about earlier with Heidi. You can go to aka.ms/join the community, and you can participate in all the chats. We'll just love to see you there. We're looking forward to see you there.
Be there or be square. Now we're going to make like a tree and get out of here. See what I did there? Got to keep it going, right? Keep the train going. All right, everybody, let's take a look at the blogs and
make sure to join the community.
That's a wrap.